In 1917, the town of Arras witnessed one of the bloodiest battles of the war, seeing nearly 300,000 men on both sides injured, wounded, or killed. To the Australians, this battle became known as Bloody Boogaloo and the Blood Tub, referencing to the high cost of life that was lost during the attack. The British also referred to this month as Bloody April due to their huge losses above the skies in the aerial fight. In 1940, the town will see conflict once again as the Nazis began their invasion of France and the Low Countries. Hey everyone, what's going on? Christopher, the video game historian here, bringing back what I originally started my channel on with the Real History of series. Now it's been a little while since I've done one of these videos, and I thought it might be good to take a look at one of the first battles of the war with the real history of the Battle of Arras. Now before I begin, I just wanted to quickly say that this video is brought to you by Phineas Coffee, the coffee company with gamers in mind. Now whether we are pulling an all-nighter or need that little bit of push to get us through our streams, Phineas Coffee has the blend for you, from their Breakfast Champions blend to their Magic Bean Espresso. Now since getting a bag of this for myself, I started to drink coffee each and every morning before I head out to work. And if you'd like to try some for yourself, simply use my promo code VGHistorian for 5% off your purchase at phineascoffee.com. Link and promo code in the description below. Now let's get back to this video. As Germany began to invade Europe, they looked to occupy and conquer as much land as they could get a hold of. Narvik was an important town that provided easy transportation of iron ore from Sweden, and while the Netherlands had proclaimed their neutrality for the war, it was still invaded because, well, let's just face it, Hitler said so. France, on the other hand, having prepared for the war since the end of the last one, fortified their border with Germany with what would become known as the Maginot Line, a fortress of defenses along the eastern border of France, hoping that this would stop the invading German army. Unfortunately for them, it did not. In fact, the Germans simply went around the Maginot Line in order to invade France, surprising the home army by advancing across the Meuse River. Once in France, the French fought desperately to defend their home, but were unfortunately still using outdated tactics and technologies from the Great War. Examples include the French continued use of the Char 1 tanks, using infantry to support said tanks, and holding in static positions. Now even though these tactics were still outdated, they still managed to hold off the Germans for a little while. That is to say that the French were not completely steamrolled. Despite the fact that the Chars could only fire forward, they were still pretty resilient to damage from the German Panzer units. The pockets of heavy resistance from the French also helped in holding back the German army. However, the Germans learned very quickly the weaknesses of the Char tanks and exploited them by firing their AT rockets at the tanks' exhaust ports and their tracks. They also learned that it was useless to simply pour all your resources into defeating one enemy or their position, a hard lesson that they had learned from World War I, and quickly moved their tanks and infantry around the strong points to attack the weaker sections. This tactic allowed the Germans to defeat the French pretty quickly, while also isolating any strong pockets from the rest of their units. As a result, the Germans were now advancing through the country at a rate of 50 kilometers per day. By May 20th, just 10 days after the initial invasion of Europe, the Germans had reached the town of Arras, surrounding the British expeditionary forces who were defending the town. The battle that would ensue would not last all that long, and in fact, the battle would be over basically the same day that it had started. Aware of the situation and what that could mean if the Germans managed to take control of the town, the commander of the BEF, Viscount Gort, devised a counterattack plan. His original plan would call for 2 infantry divisions of 15,000 men, but due to communication lines being cut and time running short, he settled for 2,000 men from the 6th and 8th battalions of Durham's light infantry, along with 76 Matilda Mark I and Mark II tanks of the 4th and 7th Royal Tank Regiments. Upon surrounding the town, Erwin Rommel, the commander of the German Panzer units, was ordered to halt and to not attack the town until May 22nd. This would allow a small window of opportunity for the British, who would launch their own counteroffensive against the Germans on May 21st. This attack would take the Germans by surprise as they were in the middle of coming up with their own plan of attack for the town. The British Matildas would attack the German 7th Panzer Division along with the SS Totenkopf unit, which would withdraw and retreat in a panic. The infantry would make quick progress on both the Germans' left and right flanks before they were eventually halted. However, even though the infantry would be halted with relative ease, the tanks would be another thorn in the German side, as the Matildas seemed to be virtually indestructible. AT rockets seemed to simply bounce right off the tanks, and even when they caught on fire and looked to be done, the tanks kept moving and kept up their attack. It wouldn't be until Rommel ordered every field gun, aircraft gun, and tank to open fire upon the British that eventually stopped the Matildas. With that, the Battle of Arras was basically over as soon as it had began, and once the Matildas were destroyed, the British began to withdraw while capturing over 400 German prisoners of war. Now, while the attack was over by day's end, the British counterattack that kicked off the battle managed to leave a dent in the side of Rommel's Panzer Division, as they were simply too wounded to continue their advance and were forced to regroup. Rommel and his men would not be able to continue their advance again until May 26th. By this time, the British were already at Dunkirk, awaiting to be evacuated. Despite the quickness of the battle, the British managed to place a blow to the Germans that day, giving them just enough time to rescue and evacuate their soldiers from the mainland. Had it not been for Gort's counteroffensive and the Battle at Arras, Dunkirk may have ended up being much, much worse. Now that's really all I have on the Battle of Arras that the Battlefield 5 map is based off of. In your opinion, what do you all think of this map? What is your favorite game mode on Arras? Is it one of the best maps in the game, or are there better maps overall? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media with Twitter and Facebook, and until next time, I'll see you all on the battlefield.